Hello, I'm Dr. George Simon, and I'm your host for a new program entitled Character Matters. Why that title? Because character does matter. It matters perhaps more than anything else. And for many years, as a trained clinical professional, I've specialized in helping folks recover from toxic relationships. I've also specialized in helping folks who have come to realize at a certain point in their lives that they need to grow significantly in character if they're to have more healthy relationships and if they're to do better in life. This has been a very uncommon career, and it has led to the publishing of several books. One of my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, is an international bestseller, has been for over 20 years, and is in print in many foreign languages. The problem, you see, is widespread, this problem of character dysfunction. It is truly the phenomenon of our age. And I have dedicated my career to understanding it and helping folks deal with it. Toward that end, a few years ago, some folks at a now defunct broadcast network asked me to host a program called Character Matters. I did so, and the program proved to be quite successful. But as I mentioned earlier, the network that sponsored the program has since ceased operating. And now, in the age of podcasts, we're revitalizing the program, Character Matters, in podcast form. This way, you'll be able to access all the information on the program anytime you wish. Play it in your car. You might download the information from your digital device, your uh, smartphone, pad, computer, laptop. Take it anywhere. Some of the programs will be live streamed. That will enable folks to call in with questions that I can answer directly. You'll also be able to access a contact feature on my website to contact me directly and ask questions that you'd like attended to or addressed on the program. Now, why this program and why my work? The program's title says it all. Not only does character matter, but I believe there's ample evidence that it matters more than anything else. It's the defining issue of our time. At workshops that I've done across the country for many years, audience attendees and myself examine many social problems and hypothesize many of the root causes of those problems. Inevitably, inevitably, the social ills and the relationship difficulties that we discuss always come back to the same thing: character. Character matters. And for decades, we've been in a character crisis of sorts. Now, I know that some people say that we've always had nefarious characters among us, and we've always had decent folks too. So today is no worse than any other day. That's just someone suggesting that things were better in the good old days. Well, things have always been difficult for we human beings. They've always been challenging. Some things have always been a problem. But some things have been better at times. There was a time, there was a time when deals could be closed on a handshake, when the the objective truth mattered. When your integrity of character mattered so much to a team that you are likely to not get on that team, no matter how much talent you had. Why? Because if you weren't of stellar character, you might bring dishonor upon the team. There were such times, and those times have passed. The reasons for that are complex. But the bottom line is this: somewhere along the line, incrementally, insidiously, we decided that character would not matter as much as it once did. We gave a pass to folks. We made excuses. We dropped our standards for each other and for ourselves. And we're paying the price. Our relationships are conflictual. Intimate relationships don't last. We have a mound of social ills. We have a higher percentage of our population either incarcerated or detained in some way than any other free society on earth because those folks cannot function very well with their full freedoms. This is a situation that can't continue. Character matters. Toward those ends, I've made a career of doing two things as a clinical therapist that typically don't go together. For one, I've helped countless of individuals recover from toxic relationships, put the pieces together, heal, move on, learn what they needed to learn to help avoid the same pitfalls, to make better relationship decisions, to empower themselves, and to lead a more joy-filled life. Interestingly, I've also helped many individuals who've come to a point in their life where they realize that their character development has been severely arrested, and that in order to do better in life and in their relationships, they'd have to grow significantly. But they don't know how. It was my great pleasure to provide some of the tools that my experience has shown me would help those individuals change for the better. Now, you can access mounds of material relevant to the character crisis, understanding problematic relationships, how to empower yourself in such situations, how to deal with manipulative people, how to recognize their tactics and not be influenced by them, how to avoid having your buttons pushed by folks who are expert at doing so. You can access many articles on many different topics on my website at drgeorgesimon.com. That's drgeorgesimon.com, or manipulative-people.com. Either URL will take you to the same site. And you'll find, as I mentioned, a lot of material there on various topics, from understanding the dynamics of toxic relationships, understanding narcissism, what it is, what it isn't, the different types of narcissistic expression, the character disturbance spectrum, the various types of disturbed characters, including the severe types, understanding what goes wrong in relationships, how a person who seemed so charming, amenable, agreeable, benign in some way, fun loving, gentle, caring, could turn out to be so character impaired and such a problem to live with or work with. In addition to the hundreds of articles that you can find on my website and blog, I've also written several books, among them Character Disturbance, the Phenomenon of Our Age. This is a book that looks at the wide range of character dysfunction, how to understand and deal with the various types of disturbed characters out there, what to look for, and especially what to look for when you're seeking help. You see, character disturbance is inherently a difficult matter to deal with. But compounding that is the fact that most therapists are not trained to deal with it. Not only that, many of the methods that we typically employ in counseling of various types are not effective with character disturbance. This is why many folks who seek help, they're in a troubled relationship. They want to see a counselor. They somehow manage to cajole their reluctant relationship partner into the counselor's office, only to find that they get no help. Why? For two reasons. One, character disturbance is an extremely difficult problem to deal with. But more than that, traditional methods of dealing with human problems aren't effective. So individuals in problem relationships who seek traditional counseling often not only don't get the help they want, but they end up feeling worse for the effort. They experience what we call therapy-induced trauma. To add insult to injury, sometimes their problematic relationship partner is skilled in the art of what we call positive impression management. That is, they're capable of putting on a pleasant facade. They're capable of charm. They're capable of looking and acting like they're a relatively benign character, making the person who's been in a relationship with them and has been pulling their hair out look like maybe they're the problem. This can really bruise the soul of the person who has sought help. It can be really a dejecting, unpleasant experience. It can only heighten the depression that they already feel. So, we're going to be covering a variety of topics on this program called Character Matters. The name of the program has a dual meaning on purpose. We're going to be talking about all matters related to character. Why? Because character matters. It matters more than anything else. It matters to our relationships, to our communities, to our business enterprises, to our overall well-being. Nothing is as important. In addition to In Sheep's Clothing and Character Disturbance, I've written a book primarily for the Christian faith community. It's called The Judas Syndrome. It's a book how genuine faith, and I stress faith that is genuine, that is from the heart, that puts full faith and trust in the timeless words and exhortations of the person most Christians profess to follow, how that kind of faith can truly save a person's life, how it can be the vehicle for personal transformation and growth and character development. And then I've written How Did We End Up Here with my co-author, Dr. Kathy Armistead. How did we end up here answers the question that most people at the end of a toxic relationship ask themselves. They wonder how a person who they thought hung the moon at the beginning of a relationship could turn out to be such a troubled character, and how a relationship that appeared to hold such promise at the beginning could end up so toxic and so depressing. They wonder how it happened. They wonder how they could have been so vulnerable. And most especially, they wonder what they need to do to help ensure that they don't fall into the same traps again. They want to know how to pick up the pieces and get on with their life. Now, the good news is that these days there's a lot of information out there about the character problem. More and more professionals, more and more people are realizing how significant the problem has become. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of misinformation out there. This program is designed to help dispel some of those misconceptions and to put information out there in a way that is both easily understandable and more accurate, and therefore more likely to empower. There's another reason why I wanted to revive and revamp the Character Matters program, and that is I'm presently working on what will likely be my last book. It's had several tentative titles, but it embraces what I call the 10 Commandments of Character. I first introduced these axioms in my book, Character Disturbance. These are timeless principles for growing in character integrity. And to be a healthy character, one must not only be emotionally healthy and psychologically healthy, but also spiritually healthy. So, what started out as a fairly moralistic book, behaviorally oriented, is being rewritten now as a more comprehensive guide to personal growth and development, emotional growth, psychological growth, overall personality development, and especially spiritual growth. I believe the time has come for us to reckon with ourselves, about ourselves, and with each other, about each other, in a daringly honest yet compassionate way. For if we don't honestly and rigorously reckon with ourselves and with each other, our problems will only multiply. Our rules and our laws can't save us. We've tried that. In the United States, there are millions of laws on the books. There are numerous codes of conduct, but no individual of decent character behaves decently because those rules exist. And no person of impaired character really regards those rules or those laws in a positive way. Sometimes they ignore them. Other times they go around them. Sometimes they outrightly defy them. The rules themselves cannot save us. What will save us? We have to decide collectively that character does matter if we're to make it matter again. That's the first step. In any 12-step program, the first step always has to do with recognizing just exactly what the problem is, defining it accurately, openly, honestly. That's the first step. And the problem that we've had in our relationships, in our society, in our various enterprises has been, for the longest time now, character. And as soon as we decide to make that matter again, and also decide and examine honestly those impediments to character and integrity that we've all helped foster, we're going to continue to have relationships that get broken so easily, that become so toxic, that end up being abusive, that hurt our children, that bruise our souls. We can and we must do better. But first, we have to recognize what the problem is and has been. And then we need to have the tools to change things. And that's what the 10 Commandments of Character are all about. So, part of what I'm going to focus on in the new Character Matters program are the 10 timeless principles for character growth and development that I call the 10 Commandments of Character. I have two reasons for wanting to do this. One is to put the information out there in a way that is easily understood, but the other reason is to help clarify all of the things that I want to be sure are included in the book that's to come out, that's tentatively titled Essentials for the Journey, Embracing and Living Out the 10 Commandments of Character. In many ways, manipulative people are like the proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing. They can look fairly benign on the outside. They're even capable of charm, a positive impression. But many times they're just out to get you, to get the better of you, and to look good while doing it. And they use some clever little tactics that play on your conscientiousness, and that's how they do you in. They also can produce what has come to be known as the gaslighting effect. How? Well, in your gut, you suspect that they're not quite who they say they are, that they're up to something, that they've got a hidden agenda or two, but you can't prove it. They act in a way that conceals their true intent. Worse, even though you suspect that there's something really wrong with them, the tactics that they employ make you believe or invite you to believe that there's something really wrong with you. This produces that crazy making feeling that's come to be known as the gaslighting effect. It's one of the issues we'll be talking about on this program. And it's the main reason why I wrote In Sheep's Clothing so many years ago, and why it's still a bestseller after all this time. Because in it, I describe that effect that we now know as the gaslighting effect. We didn't have a name for it back when I first came upon it and decided to write about it. In fact, In Sheep's Clothing was the first book to ever call this phenomenon out, even though we didn't have a name for it at the time. And I think part of the reason why the book became an international bestseller is because right from the opening pages, when people who were in these manipulative relationships realized that they weren't crazy after all, that people really do use clever little tactics to hide both their true selves and their true intent, and that they know what they're doing when they do it most of the time. As soon as folks realized that and got to know the tactics that I outlined so clearly in the book and how to respond to those tactics, they became empowered. They became aware. They were fooled no longer. They no longer had the wool pulled over their eyes. And that changed everything for them. So I'm looking forward to the new Character Matters program. for many reasons. This has been my life's work, and I have enjoyed it. But as I approach full retirement, in many ways, it may be past due, but it's still a passion of mine. You see, I love my country, and I tend to love people in general. And in my lifetime, I've seen far too much unnecessary pain. Some pain in life is inevitable. We're not promised a rose garden. And as one of the 10 commandments of character asserts, we're not entitled even to a single breath. But there's a lot of unnecessary pain in this world. And most of it stems from the trouble we're all having forging a solid character in our morally relativistic, permissive, and entitled times. I hope to do something to play a part in mending this. And that's what Character Matters is all about. So I hope you'll join me for future programs, each of which will have a title. The first one is going to begin a series on narcissism. It will have at least 3 parts, maybe 4. In some of the programs, I will be merely doing my best to impart some information to you. In other programs, I'll be having a discussion with some folks who have much to contribute to understanding the dilemma we're in and the reasons for it. In some programs, my wonderful spouse and sometimes business partner and fellow psychologist, Dr. Sherry Simon, will co-host with me, and we'll have a pretty interesting, I hope, discussion about character matters, especially as they affect relationships. Other times, I'll be commenting on current affairs, headline stories, or other examples in the news that illustrate the nature of the problems that we face and what we have to do to fix them. My overall hope, however, is singular. I want to do my best to help individuals live life to its fullest. And that means necessarily that they are capable of bringing to a relationship the level of character necessary to foster a fulfilling relationship, one characterized by intimacy and positive regard, a kind of positive regard that we call genuine love. I'd like to do my part to help people find peace, harmony, fulfillment, and above all, positive connections. We're all in this together, whether we appreciate it or not, whether we like it or not, whether we recognize it or not. We are all connected. It's how we connect with one another intentionally that matters. And that's what defines integrity of character. And it is how we relate to one another that defines the nature of our character. So join me for what I hope will be the many editions. So join me for what I hope will be the many editions of the new Character Matters. I'm Dr. George Simon. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time. Take care.